Hello, my name is Becca Taylor. I am here to talk about how I learned A Time for Love. It is an arrangement, or rather a transcription, by Bill Evans. The music is by Johnny Mandel and the words are by Paul Francis Webster. So I have the recording as well. I'll link it in the description below, so feel free to check that out. But definitely don't rely on that as a professional recording. Go listen to Bill Evans in his album Alone. It's a fabulous recording. So the first thing I want to mention about how I learned this piece is I listened to it a lot. And I even listened to it before I started practicing it. I would just play it when I'm getting ready in the morning. As I'm driving in the car, I would play it and just really infiltrate myself with that piece so I was familiar with how it sounded. The other thing I did was listen to just the entire album to get to know a little bit more about the phrasing and jazz music in general. I've listened to jazz for sure, but I am definitely new at playing jazz transcriptions. I have just a minimal experience with it, so I'm definitely diving in for the first time. So listening for sure. The other thing I did, when I knew I had some downtime, I would listen to A Time for Love while looking at the music, and I would follow along. I would do that in the evening before I let myself watch TV, or like I said, if I'm waiting to go at the doctor's office or whatnot, I would bring my book, bring my earbuds, and listen to it several times over. Another practice with that is then to turn off your music and hear it in your head while looking at your music, and that's a fabulous way to play as well. I would say I started definitely working on this before I did a lot of the listening looking. So that was, I guess I did that simultaneously, I'd say, while also still just listening to it a ton. Okay, I want to now get into the nitty-gritty. If you don't have the music or aren't listening or planning to play this piece, this might not be as helpful to you, but maybe, definitely, these things can apply to all sorts of music. So one thing I did was write in the fingering. I found that to be very helpful. In fact, I wrote in the fingering the day of my recording after practicing it for 3-4 weeks. And I kept thinking to myself, I should have wrote this in sooner. But, as you play along, you realize, I could use different fingering here, or if I wrote this in, I would remember to play it that way every time, not forget and have to go back and fix it. Once I kind of knew this, the general part of this where I could play it through knowing my notes and my rhythm, then I started to listen to the recording, one page of it, I'd stop it and play it through. And then I'd go back and listen to that first page again and stop it. As I listened, I would then make marks as to phrasing and pedaling, dynamics, even places of specifically rubato. I at least listened for. I didn't necessarily write down like speed up, slow down particularly, but I know I was making mental note of that. So essentially, I'm trying to copy Bill Evans. So for instance, first two measures. I noticed that there was a lift there. It wasn't connected. So I wrote a draw up for my pedal there. Actually, this is more connected. Lift. Right there. I noticed, okay, he likes that a little more dry. Lift. And this was one place, this measure here, I noticed, okay, some nice rubato going on. And then as we go into the next measure, I'm doing some nice accelerating. Listening like this page at a time, I realized, okay, at the last two measures of those phrases, when I have this motive going on or sequence, there's a lift and another lift. So it's always the last two measures. The other times that happens, like right there, those are both connected. And that theme comes back several times throughout this piece. And each time it really did follow that pattern with the lifting and pedal. Into the next measure, I noticed it becomes a little more subdued and calm here. And very metronomical, less rubato. Did a little bit of rubato in there. All the while really making sure that right hand top note melody is being brought out over left hand and the lower notes of any chords I'm playing with the right hand. So, listen for that. The other thing I noticed, there's like two roles, specific roles marked in this piece. Bill Evans plays them very quickly. At first I was playing, but I noticed, they're pretty quick. Top notes, crescendo. Again, so here's that sequence again. I'm going to connect the first two, lift the second two. To roll that chord. It's not supposed to, but I can't reach that. I also notice he really brings out the 1 and 2 to this chord in that measure. So some really cool syncopation going on. Often when there's just quarter note chords consecutively, they aren't particularly expressive, but it's more a time to maybe decompress. And these up here on the top of page 3, little crescendo. It says particularly a new tempo marking swing, quarter note equals 135. I at first was playing this like, okay, I'm going to pick this up. The initial tempo marking is just rubato, and it's pretty soft and slow, lyrical sounding. So first I thought, okay, on to a new section. But listening to it, Evans gets, I would say, doesn't like think an automatic change. It more builds up to it. So I thought, okay, these are a little bit slow. A little bit quicker. There's another spot disconnected, and I really liked that. All right, and then this is one of the first places that I realized, oh, he is not swinging every single eighth note. Right here was the first place I'm like, that is definitely played straight. As opposed to, oops, sorry. And then in this section, that was a reoccurring theme. Here and there, not all the eighth notes are swung. Sometimes they're straight, which was really fun. And as I got more and more comfortable near the end, I decided, okay, I want to play around with this. Where would I want to do a straight as opposed to a swing? And there's a spot that I would do like the end of a phrase to accentuate the end. So this is page 18 in the book, third line, first measure, as opposed to unlike that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead one other brief note here. On page 16, I have a note that says dynamics follow contour. So this page, there's a lot of right hand scalar passages. I haven't practiced this in a few days. And then right in here, so I'm going to crescendo up. Oh, that reminds me. I want to make note of the articulation in these right-hand scalar passages. At first, I was playing very disconnected. But then, as I listened more and more, they are disconnected, but I would say they're not. Try to not think of it as like a classical disconnected. But rather a smooth, relaxed jazz way. And gosh, I'm sure there's jazz musicians, if you hear this, you're just gonna be like, she has no idea what she's talking about. I don't know how to explain it, but listening. I aimed for a softer tone with lifting. Then the left hand definitely helps with the syncopation feel, so don't be afraid to bring that out, but obviously don't let it come over your right hand melody. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead here, and I just want to talk about, there were two passages that I practiced over and over and over again, that right hand, to get it nice and clean, which I haven't played this for a couple days. I did the standard old rhythm work. Long, short, and then the vice versa, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. I did Oh Mary Jane, oh Mary Jane, oh Mary Jane. I did Mary Jane, Mary Jane, Mary Jane, Mary Jane, which is essentially a group of three with a pause, Mary Jane. One thing, and then I also did, accents differently. So I would accent the first note, and then I'd say, actually, I'm going to leave off that very first note and just, it's several groups of triplets. I would accent the first group of the triplets. Then I'd accent the second group of the triplets. And then I would accent the third group of the triplets. Like that. Several times before I would move on to the other, second group of the triplets, etc. And working to gain my speed. That was very helpful. The last thing I want to mention I did was Josh Wright. I learned this from him, as well as the accent. So if you're not familiar with his channel, definitely check it out. It's phenomenal. Group of three. Pause. Group of three. So I was getting that quick, get up practice quick, but then I'd get to regroup. And of course, using all the same fingering, all your same articulation here, don't change it. But then I'd do a group of four. Oh man. Etc. And I found that to be extremely helpful. So I think I'm going to end that video there. Sorry if it's so long. I really just want to shout out to Josh Wright. I'm essentially copying his pattern as far as he does videos like this, walking you through pieces. So I'm copying him. I'm going to give that to him for sure. But if you have any questions, please feel free to comment, ask below. My intent with this is just thinking, I would love to have a video like this as I was learning this piece, so I thought I would love to offer it. But if you are learning this piece, let me know what you have noticed and what you're working on, because this isn't one I'm gonna just be done with. I know I'll keep this for a long time, hope to play it for some background gigs. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, enjoy your practicing.